Hi, this is Clarence Moye with Awards Daily here with award-winning actor Paul Giamatti, who is newly starring in Alexander Payne's The Holdovers, which is now playing in theaters. Paul, it's fantastic to meet you.
It's a pleasure to meet you, sir. Thank you.
So, as I look at your resume, I have to remind myself that this is only the second time that you've worked in an Alexander Payne film. I feel like that cinematic dialogue between the two of you is so easy that and so prevalent and powerful that you it feels like you've been in more of his films. What do you think it is between you as an actor and him as a director that makes that relationship
Well, it's
work so well?
interesting. I think part of it is that movie is Sideways has had a staying power that's amazing to me. So that in some ways, I feel like it was just made. So it's like it feels like it was new every year since. It feels like people discover it like it's a new movie all the time, which is great. Um, I don't know. I mean, I've certainly wanted to do other things with him. I'm amazed I got to do one thing with him. Now it's really amazing I've done two with him. We wanted to do other things. They didn't come to pass, and we wanted to do this for several years, and it never worked out scheduling wise, and then it finally did. Um, I don't know. I guess it really that movie Sideways struck such a deep chord. It seems like he and I have some sort of great history together, which seems like it's always present. I don't know.
So you talk about Sideways, here in the Holdovers, you play Paul. Do you see, as you looked at the character, as you started to understand who Paul Hunnam was, um, did you see any similarities between Paul and Sideways' Miles?
It feels like a similar character at a different place in his life, 20 years on, actually, but it feels similar. He's different. I kind of like this character better. Not that I don't like the other guy, but he's not as anxious and depressed. There's something a little more tough about this guy, and he's got a little bit more, pep in his step than the other guy. And he enjoys his kind of his sarcasm and he's really like he's enjoying things a bit more. But it's true. I think there's resonances between them that I can't really articulate. I don't know how intentional it even was on Alexander's part. You'd have to ask him if there was ever any thinking like there's meant to be some dialogue between these movies. I don't know.
So the Holdovers has this fantastic screenplay and so much it's so rich and there's so much character development within it. As you consumed the screenplay and you started to figure out how you wanted to play Paul outside of the screenplay, what was the most beneficial thing to help you figure out what the character was?
Well, the screenplay is the main thing. I'm not a terribly interesting actor, and not just reading it over and over again is the best resource. I had a lot of personal acquaintance with things like this that I was drawing on. Then it's a lot of, there's wonderful the period thing, the whole sort of like physical life of the thing was really great. It really placed you somewhere really specific in that world, and being in those sets and stuff was really helpful. It was a funny movie for me because in a lot of ways I felt like I wasn't working hard enough. And I think that's because there was a lot of familiarity with it, which is why maybe Alexander says he wrote it for me. I don't, I'm not entirely sure what he means by that sometimes, but I think he thought this guy knows this world because it's his background. So in a lot of ways, it was an unconscious drawing on something. I wasn't even aware of a lot of what I was doing.
You
That
talk
makes
about the
sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And you talked about the world of the Holdovers and sort of the period and it is a throwback to films of the 70s. And I just it's such a warm environment that and it's been so well received by audiences and by especially at film festivals, winning a couple of awards here at film festivals. Why
Mhm.
do you think it is here in 2023 that people love that sort of throwback atmosphere?
That's interesting. That's a nostalgic thing. It's funny to be nostalgic for the 70s. It's like that's not necessarily a good sign. The 70s were pretty rough. But I think people are I always say it's wonderful to see something without all the digital stuff in it. It feels more
Mhm.
dramatic and more interesting sometimes. You see somebody have to run to a phone to make a phone call instead of like uh but I also think it's a movie that is really rooted in people sort of coming together and finding empathy for each other, and people helping each other move forward, and people creating a closeness and a bond that's unlikely. And I just think that kind of thing, and it's so well done that I just think people find it comforting in some way, even though it's not the happiest movie in the world. It's funny, and things are, who knows for some of these people what's going to happen to them, but you're actually seeing people help each other, and I just think people, it feels nice to people. I think people, the things have been crazy now for a while, and it's like, I think that feels nice to see people bonding, strangers, relative strangers, coming together. They're going to break apart again, but they're finding this wonderful bond that helps them move forward a little bit.
Yeah, the poster behind you, I think it's the right version I'm thinking of, where it's the broken Christmas ornament.
Yeah.
It's such a perfect symbol for the film,
Okay.
because they are
I'm glad you
three
like
sort of
that.
broken people, and
Yeah,
it
that's right.
just
That's right. That's exactly right. They are broken. Yeah.
um this is also a very character driven story, and so you're working here with Devine and Dominic,
Yep.
and the characters are not immediately close to in the beginning of the film, but they grow closer. They grow with each other through this holdover period over Christmas.
Yeah.
Is that tricky for you as actors to try to replicate that sort of progression of closeness, or progression of getting to know each other?
I mean, yeah, but again, it's a kind of a boring answer, but it's in the script. You can
Right.
see it and you can feel it. You know what I mean? You know it, and he's guiding you through it. And I think it's the pleasure of it too, is finding those moments as these people start to sort of recognize something about each other. It's such an interesting story. These three people are just suddenly thrown in isolation. The whole world falls away. They have no choice in a weird way, but to kind of just like they have nothing but each other to start to see something in each other. I think it's the script. It's a boring answer, but I think it's the script. You see it, you know it. You have a guy guiding you who's a brilliant, genius director, but it's an invisible hand. You don't feel it in any way. I think it's the script. I hate to say it, and the director. It's not like we're not doing something, but he gets the
Totally.
right actors who just get it in some way.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, one of the, obviously this is a very, at times a very emotional film, but it's also a very, very, very funny film.
Good.
Particularly, I love the physical comedy between you and Dominic early in the film, where you're chasing him with
Good.
the detention slips,
Thank you. I
and
love the detention slip. The detention slip was very funny to me.
it's a fantastic addition. And even when you're screaming "son of a bitch" at him, it's just, the audience, what I saw it with, until you're
Good.
just erupted in laughter. It's a great
Good.
moment.
I say it's a great dynamic action sequence in
Yes,
the movie.
when you're not expecting it, it's
No, you really are. This middle-aged guy chasing this kid around. It's ridiculous. Yeah.
I also have to ask about the eye.
Mhm.
Like, was that written into the script? Was that something that you worked out with Alexander? Like,
No, it was
tell
in the
me about that.
script. It was in the script, and the movie's inspired by. It's not like sort of directly taken from, but a French movie. I can't remember the title. Merluce, it's called. Some French movie from the 30s that Alexander saw. It's a similar thing. It's a guy with a bunch of kids at the school, and it's Christmas, and he's nobody likes him. And that guy in that movie had a condition with his eye, so he just took that from this and put it in this. And it's just another way in which this guy is put outside the circle of acceptance. You know what I mean? It's like these kids make fun of these things about him. So it's just another thing that makes him marginal. I'm not at liberty to discuss how we did it.
Oh,
Alex
okay.
is quite adamant that he wants to keep it a secret, which I think is great. So I'm not at liberty to talk about how we did it. But it was an effective thing, and it worked for me actually as an actor. And it's a detail that was in the script. I had nothing to do with it.
I love how it does, as you say, set apart him from the other teachers, so that
From everybody.
he's yeah, from everybody. So he's isolated, right? And that's
Yeah,
where
he's
he starts at
isolated.
the beginning of the
Everything
film.
isolates the guy. Then he isolates himself.
Yeah.
It's like, so he's very isolated.
But then he uses his subject, he uses his intelligence to further set people apart, to put people down, and
Yes.
it's
Yes. And he's just oblivious. he doesn't live in this century anymore. He's placed himself outside of time and everything. You know,
You talk about, obviously the brilliance of the screenplay, and it's all there in the screenplay. Was there a moment that was particularly challenging for you as an actor to try to translate into action?
no, I mean there were things I remember. Again, it was all sort of there. It's in it that there's a scene they're showing a lot, a liquor store scene that was technically difficult to do. I loved the fact that he wanted to do it all in one take, but that stuff can be hard, and that was technically difficult. Um, I mean, I don't feel like there was anything emotionally. That last scene with Dom is not emotionally hard, but it was interesting to play the restraint of not hugging each other and stuff like that, finding the right tone of that kind of thing. It's not hard; it's pleasurable in a way, to find that kind of thing. If I'm answering your question, I hope
You
I'm.
are, and that's, what's so funny is that he said the exact same thing. That was his toughest moment, was to be able
Dom,
to, yes, when I
yeah,
just spoke with him
or
earlier
not
today.
hugging, yeah.
Yeah,
You
and then
couldn't,
the
you couldn't,
restraint and
yeah.
put the undercurrent of
You
all the
couldn't
things that are
because
going on.
even so, there's still this sort of like period thing and male thing and this Barton man bullshit that they can't hug each other still at that very end part.
So, without giving any spoilers away, the film ends with you driving off into the sunset, essentially.
Yes,
um,
yes.
have you ever imagined where Paul ends up in 5 years?
It's been interesting. People have asked me about that, and as opposed to the guy in Sideways, because similar thing where you're like, what's going to happen next
Mhm.
with this guy? And Alexander does that great. He drops you in the middle of something and he just pulls you out of it. You don't know what's going to happen. This guy, I really don't know. And I was sort of like, I felt kind of worried about him. But it's funny that people I've talked to have all said to me they think he's going to be all right.
Mhm.
And I've actually found that really moving because I'm like, I'm glad people are walking away from this movie thinking he's going to be okay. Because I didn't know that he was going to be okay. I don't know if he's lying about having a friend in Syracuse. Does he really have a friend in Syracuse? Is he kind of, it's like, but I like that people think that maybe he's going to be okay. Maybe he's going to go somewhere. Maybe he's going to find somebody to be with. Maybe he's going to be okay. But I don't know. I truly do not know.
To me, it's the spitting
Yeah.
out of the liquor that he steals.
Uh-huh.
He drinks it,
That's
and but
interesting.
he
What
spits it
does that
out.
mean to you? That's interesting. That's
It
interesting.
means that he's not going to drown his sorrows in alcohol anymore, because it's not really spoken, but it's inferred that he's an alcoholic.
Sure. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and so maybe, by spitting that out, by not drinking and driving,
That's
which was,
interesting.
yeah, maybe maybe he's going to be okay.
Very interesting. That's cool. I think that's a great way of seeing it. That's awesome. That's awesome. Can it change?
I hope so. Well, those are all the questions I had for you
Thank
today,
you.
Paul. Thank you so much. It's a beautiful performance, one of my
Thank you.
favorite of the year,
Thank you
and
very much.
best of luck to you.
Thank you.
Take care.
You too.